Welcome back, my friends, to the Predictive Playbook. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and crude oil on this quick hitting 5 minute show. We really believe that having a 5 minute show is going to provide a lot of value and it allows people to listen to it at any time. So, this is a recorded show. They won't be live going forward, and they will be part of a new channel within the Predictive Playbook channel. So, there'll be links to this show from Twitter, and I think you'll be able to figure it out pretty easily. Welcome to the show, Steve. We really nailed crude oil yesterday. I think the pattern was outstanding, and it's really starting to gain momentum.
Yeah, it was one of the better setups we've seen. We were calling crude short a couple weeks ago, and it took a quick drive, as you see with that red down candle about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and then about 2 days later, it came right back up, and you see how we had kind of had a doji candle in between there. So it looked like it was short-lived, but the way it was starting to roll over, as we talked about yesterday. But once again, wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a little bit of a bounce tomorrow, maybe get back up to the 2 day ago candle. But I think long-term, the trend is down for several reasons. I mean, we're technical handicappers here when it comes to the markets. And if you just look at the technicals, I mean, crude has been on a monster uptrend really all the way since the COVID break of April of 2020. Of course, the front month contract momentarily traded negative, don't forget. So technically, this was below zero at one point a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And now it's at 70. So obviously, whenever anything makes a big run like that, a 200-300% run, whether it be lumber, Bitcoin, now oil, we've seen monster corrections after that. So there's definitely a lot of downside potential reward. But we'll see where this plays out. I mean, if you look at it, it's faltered to take out its all-time high like 3 times now over the past month. If you look at those highs, about all the way to the left there, and then it came a little bit of a drop, it came up, and then a huge drop, and then it only came up about 50-70%. Now it's dropping again. So we might see a little bit of a pullback, but I think the risk-reward is setting up really nice still. If you didn't get in yesterday when we recommended getting in, you've obviously missed a little bit. Might want to wait for a pullback, but then again, you might never end up getting in if that's the case, but that's okay. Sometimes you don't get into markets, you miss the move. Same thing happened with Bitcoin that we'll get to in a moment. It had a monster gap open 2 Sundays ago, and we had called for it to run after that Friday, that week in the show. We said, looked like the floor is in it. So both oil and Bitcoin have done the same thing. After we liked the move one way or the other, it came out with a monster move, and people kind of missed it momentarily. But if you chased it 2 weeks ago, you got in at the low there. If you waited for a pullback, you got another opportunity yesterday and today to get in. And, I think that's the case with Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, I agree. The move from the trade yesterday, at the time that we were saying that we're going to add this to our portfolio of positions, which is long the Australian dollar at 73.90 basically, and also I'm short the S&P in this account too at 44.04. So the movement from the time of the show in crude oil to right now is a $2,900 profit per contract. So this is a big move. Like you said before we went on the air, you said it perfectly. This is a 5%er sports play, and when they get this good, that's what we put out in our sports picks at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. But what do you think? Any changes in your opinion on Bitcoin?
Well, for months I was saying I thought Bitcoin was in a channel between 30 and 40,000. That held up. You can basically see the sideways action after that big plummet 2 months ago there over to the left. You saw it's kind of just in a channel. But that 30,000 support was tested about a week ago, and it hit 29. It bounced right off it about 2 different times over the last month. It hit 28, 29, always closed above. And that's why I was really bullish for the first time. And once again, let's put it in perspective. Bitcoin was around 10,000 9 months ago. By the end of 2020, it was 30,000. In April, it was 60,000.
Yep.
And then, it was back down to 30,000 a month or so later. So this is just like crude oil. It had a monster run up, and then it really corrected 50%, miraculously 50%, as we always talk about. So there again, if crude oil corrects, it could be in the 30 or 40 range. It's still at like 68. So there's a lot of downside to crude for that reason. But for the first time in a while, I think there's some upside to Bitcoin because I really think, once again, you put your stop loss in maybe at 28. I think 29.30 is the support. So let's give it a little wiggle room at 28. And last week it was around 32 when I said that. But as you see that gap open, 2 Sundays ago there, that big green candle, you were unable to get in at that price. It went from 32 to basically 35, 38 instantly. And we've seen a little bit of a pullback, but I'm not sure we're going to see much more of a pullback, and it is up today. So I think this is, once again, probably about the best chance to get in if you really think it's got a long-term potential. Your risk reward is about 10 to the downside, and who knows how much to the upside. There's some analysts talking about 100,000 or more. So if that's the case, your risk reward to the upside is 60 plus thousand with the $10,000 downside. So once again, we have stop losses for all these trades. We're not just going into them blind. And I still think there's a lot of good upside potential. And as you see, it broke that trend line, that blue trend line. And not coincidentally, the gap open was right on each side of that trend line. So, maybe it gets back down to test that gap open. It often does, but I don't see it. I think it's a little too far away. I think at most it's only going to be down another 2,000-3,000, and then it's going to probably run. So you can maybe wait to get in at a slightly better price. But I think, and that's a good support resistance level right there, and that's right halfway through the big candle. And if you look at yesterday and today, the lows, the open and closed lows for the last 2 days are right above that line. So I think this is, once again, about as good as you're going to get for a long-term perspective on Bitcoin. And just to put it in perspective, when it went from 30 to 60 the first 4 months this year, that was a lot of speculation, obviously. And that got flushed out. And I really feel like 29.30 is the long-term support for whether it be institutions, companies, that are holding. So I think there's some really good support for that reason. And if it was to break that, something fundamentally is wrong, but I don't see that happening. So once again, I think 28 for your stop loss, maybe even 29 or 30, and unlimited reward to the upside, until we see otherwise. So bullish on Bitcoin here for the long term, even though I'm usually somewhat of a short-term swing trader.
Yeah, I like it, Steve. And for tomorrow's show, for the Bitcoin part of it, I'm going to analyze some option strategies. Start out with some basic ones, which would be just a bullish call spread where we're going to buy one call. We're going to simultaneously sell another to create the spread. And it's a very conservative play. It's more conservative than actually betting or using the futures contract. So, that's something to look forward for the viewers to look forward to tomorrow. And option trading with this kind of stuff is a real good thing to do. I don't know how else to say it, but if you're very bullish on Bitcoin, I know I'm going to come up with some strategies that will be better than buying the contract and be less financial risk. So let me get rid of this chart here. So that's really all we're going to do today, guys. We're short crude. We like that pattern. It retested the low of that hammer that we saw yesterday, which was textbook example. It doesn't get any better than that one. And we're going to look for follow through. If that closes near the low today in crude oil, there's no reason to think that it's not going to test the waters below. And Bitcoin here, I do think, like Steve does, that this is getting close to where you can conservatively get involved at a very, very good level, somewhere hopefully around 36.5. But that'll do it, Steve. I appreciate your time and look forward to our other 5 to 10 minute segments because these are fun to do. So on behalf of Steve, myself, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, may all the trades win for you.